All right, international politics. That's our next section with Mr. Jeff Berkowitz of Delve. Learn us some stuff, Jeff. Come on.
So Jeff, I want to turn towards the Middle East, a subject near and dear to both our hearts. So a mutual friend of ours just came back from a week in Israel, and her reaction was that Israel, notwithstanding Senator Schumer calling for regime change in Israel, that the Israelis are united and as a country has never been. They've put their differences aside in fighting this war. And that message is not getting into the U.S. press or getting into the American household because it's being portrayed as warmonger, genocide, divided country. And that was the rationale, apparently, that Senator Schumer put out there as to why there needed to be regime change in Israel. What are you seeing on the ground there that maybe is not getting reported in the press?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had the opportunity to go to Israel since October 7th, but certainly talking with folks who are there, both in and outside of government, and I don't think that the vast majority of Israelis are focused on politics. Right now, they're focused on survival. And I think the clarifying moment that Israel had on October 7th is apparently lost on Senator Schumer. They are in a real war for their existential survival, and they understand that. And they need to make sure that there is not another attack like there was on October 7th. I think they have no interest in focusing on politics and who having yet another election like they had so many of in the year or two leading up to October 7th. That they don't want to focus on that right now. They want to focus on victory and survival. And I think that's pretty broad opinion that I've heard across political perspectives there.
Mm.
And domestically, what are you seeing? Because I know that there's certain Jewish organizations, if not now, when there's another one. I forget, Jews for Peace now or something.
Jewish Voices for Peace.
Jewish Voices for Peace. There's almost been sort of a moment of cognitive dissonance within, let's call it the liberal Jewish community within this country, who was the vanguard of what I like to say are the social justice movements and Black Lives Matter, only to find out that these groups that they have supported have been basically anti-Semitic, certainly on a root level and now sort of on an overt level. But yet you still have significant amount of the Jewish community who see Israel as, for lack of a better term, an oppressor nation, right? They're an apartheid nation, they're an oppressor, all of which is total crap. But, it's almost, it's the question, it's the inevitable question I get when I'm in a room, we have a serious conversation with people is, why are Jews so liberal? Meaning, right? Why do they vote against their self-interest?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had so many quick discussions on that question. It's almost Talmudic at this point.
The Talmud by Jeff. I'm good with that. Okay.
Yeah. And this is an issue that we work on. We work with a number of organizations that have been combating anti-Semitism, on campus and in communities in this country for a number of years. And, it's a bizarre reality that a lot of the folks that we're confronting are themselves Jewish. And it's this bizarre sort of guilt. I think it's a minority viewpoint within our community, but I think today's modern anti-Semitism is largely cloaked in the language and concepts of progressivism and inclusion, which is bizarre and insane because it's a very hateful, ancient ideology of Jew hatred, but it's mostly a feature of the left today. There's certainly, your traditional sort of white supremacists and right-wing anti-Semitism out there. It's mostly outside the bounds of mainstream. A large portion of the Democratic Party, including the current occupant of the White House, believe that they have to address a constituency on the left that hates Israel and does not support making communities and campuses in America safe places for Jews either. And Jews have tended in this country to vote more liberally and for Democrats, and they view themselves as being part of this inclusive movement for more inclusivity, and some of them are awakening to the fact that they're not welcome, and some aren't, and we'll see how that all plays out. I wish more would wake up more quickly, but I think you saw a significant uptick after October 7th of folks realizing, wait a minute, I've marched with you, after George Floyd, I marched with you, for Pride, I marched with you for all, for immigration, all these causes, and now when it's time to stand with me and my people's time of existential, threat, you're marching against me, and I think it's awoken a number of folks to that reality. Still a lot more to go, though.
I think you really nailed it on the head. In so many areas of American life, it's not until something like this happens, something bad, that you realize who your allies are and what things are really about. People usually trust the government until the government, takes your money, takes your land, does something to you. People trust.
Wait, not these people.
No, but
no, excuse me. Haven't you written a book about that?
Yeah, it's called Reasons to Trust the Government. Spoiler alert, it's blank. But I was more on the left until I started having experiences, right? Oh, I started my own business. I had to pay my own taxes. I bought a house. I saw the city screwing me over with stupid laws. Then the media lied about the southern border, which I knew perfectly well was an absolute human rights atrocity long before Donald Trump came down the golden escalator. So I seeing the media just outright lie to people. So it usually takes some triggering event for somebody who's more liberal or on the left to kind of go, oh, I'm actually kind of on my own, or I'm going to have to actually go find my own actual tribe of people that I can trust. Not.
Well, we have 10 or 12 tribes. You can join one of them depending on who's counting, right? So, that's okay. But,
I'm on I'm in Benjamin.
If you want to join a tribe, we're all about tribes, so that works. So,
well, it was Irving Kristol, the famous conservative, that said a conservative is a liberal mugged by reality. So.
Yeah,
literally.
And Winston Churchill said that if you're not a liberal in your youth, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative as you get older, you have no brains. So it's just. But listen.
So does that mean Joe Biden has no brains? Yeah. I'm sorry. Wait, what? Wait, yeah, what was that?
He would be like the scarecrow, right? Exactly. But so listen, I need to segue, ladies and gentlemen. We've been talking all show. It's been great with Jeff Berkowitz, the founder and CEO of Delve, a risk management, international intelligence, competitive intelligence. Jeff, first of all, thank you for being our guest. I hope you'll come back. But where can people find you? On the web, on LinkedIn? Yes. Where can they find you? Because I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions.
I'm glad you clarified that you meant sort of on the internet, because I was like, I don't want anyone to find me. But so we're at delvedc.com. If you're interested in energy issues, you can also find us at delve.energy. We're covering all the debates around the energy transition that folks are trying to push around the country, and we're mostly active on LinkedIn, although I do think we have a Twitter as well, but we try and keep our discourse thoughtful, so LinkedIn has always been our best platform.
Right. Fantastic.
So if you just search Delve LLC on there, you'll find us and some of the stuff we're posting.
So not inflammatory like Ericka and I tend to be.
Correct.
Hey.
We're inflammatory, but only if you really think about what we're saying.
Okay, so Jeff, before we close today, my question that I had to ask, what's going to be the October surprise this year? Okay, 2020, the October surprise got suppressed by Twitter. Right? It got suppressed by all the socials. So hopefully we won't have that happen.
The 2020 surprise was the Hunter Biden laptop?
Correct. So that was the Hunter Biden laptop was the October surprise. It got totally suppressed. Do you have any guesses? What should we be listening for? Give us some like tea to spill.
Well, if it's an October surprise in that sort of traditional sense, like the Hunter Biden laptop should have been, it's going to be everyone's in their own media caves. Okay. It's not even a red and blue media caves. They're like 5 or 6. Axios just had a great article on this yesterday. Jim Vandehei and Mike Allen on sort of the 12 camps that of different echo chambers that exist today. So it's very hard to have that sort of a traditional October surprise because it doesn't break. It's hard to break through people's tribal instincts. So I think you're really left with a black or at least gray swan type event, right? You war, conflict, the Middle East could become more inflamed in significant ways. Asia, you mentioned earlier in the show about, U.S. troops in Taiwan doing training and advisory work. China could get more adventurous in the South China Sea. Latin America, our Joe Biden's good friend, Maduro down there, or not. He's looking at invading Guyana.
Yep.
To take their oil assets. That could be very disruptive to the energy markets. And that gets us to that sort of next bucket, which is the economy. If inflation keeps going up, if we finally admit that the real country is really in a recession and has been for some time, if you look at the private markets versus the public markets, that's mostly based on what's going on with the tech stocks. That could, and you have some big layoffs, that could be a big impactful event. And then candidate health. If one of these candidates has an episode, ends up in the hospital, God forbid, wish everyone well, or worse, that could certainly be a disruptive event. But I think the sort of traditional kind of gotcha opposition research type things, it's going to get stuck in an echo chamber and have marginal impact outside of it.
That is fascinating, Jeff.
I think the Black Swan event or the Gray Swan event in October is going to be they're going to release Joe Biden's IQ test, right? And I'm hearkening back to that commercial in the 80s when he ran about my IQ's better than you. He did it in New Hampshire, by the way, where I am. The one that he got called out by Sam Donaldson and the other reporters. I finished, I had 3 degrees, top of my class, and my IQ's better than you.
Yeah, all lies.
This is IQ test.
All lies. So. Well, and this is what I mean. Can you imagine? This is what is so funny to me too. When was the last time? And now I know everybody picked on Ronald Reagan for his age, but like legitimately, both of our leading presidential candidates are octogenarians. That's the best we've got. Really?
Well,
they could plot at any minute.
Yeah, technically, Trump is still a septuagenarian.
But he won't be by the time he leaves office.
This is true.
If he makes it. Oh my God. When has the vice presidential pick ever been this important? Like for real, for real. When was the last time the vice presidential pick actually mattered this much?
Well, wait a minute. You should really be asking Jeff, who's the vice presidential pick for Trump? Because if anyone would know, my guess is Jeff will.
Ooh.
I don't think even Trump knows. So, look, I think that could also be an interesting, not necessarily October surprise, but I remember if you look at 2008, McCain's pick of Palin and he was sort of, that was something of a concern in that election, was a huge turning point in the election. Not in a good way for John.
Not in a good way.
Well, it wasn't. Ultimately, it wasn't because the pitch that the Obama folks were making against McCain was that he was erratic and couldn't be trusted, and that was their effort to overcome the experience gap. And I remember having a conversation years after the election with David Plouffe, who ran the campaign. They said we couldn't get any traction on that argument until he picked Palin. And it was so erratic and out of nowhere. And her credentials seemed like, she was a mayor. It was just that it made people a lot more open to that messaging, and was ultimately his downfall. Now, I will say, from a turning out the base perspective, anybody who was working in campaign offices across the country saw an immediate uptick of people actually wanting campaign signs, and there was some energy and momentum after that pick. But it was insufficient to win the election, as we saw.
And you're right; it does confirm choices. I still remember in 2012 when Obama was running against Romney, and they were trying to paint him as sort of a silver-spooned Wall Street guy, and they are at the debates, and Mitt Romney reaches over and says, "I'll bet you $10,000." Instant crystallization of the ether of out of touch silver spoon guy, right? I'll bet you because Americans don't bet $10,000.
No.
Maybe they'll bet $1,
$100.
Gentleman's bet. If you go to your bookie, maybe you're spending $500 on the spread for the Steelers or the whatever. I'll bet you $10,000.
Wow.
So
that is so crazy. And the Howard Dean, the scream. Okay. This is our last question, Jeff. It is fascinating to me that some of those things.
Keeping them overtime. I just want you to know.
No, we've got 2 minutes left. I'm watching the clock.
Stay and do overtime.
Oh, I'm watching the clock. Stupid stuff like that tanks campaigns.
Well, when you're running a campaign, you're trying to build a template of perceptions, both positive for your candidate and negative for your opponent, right? It's all about contrast.
Yeah.
And if you do your homework right on who you're running against and you understand your own vulnerabilities, you're structuring that in a way that people's natural disposition will come out, right? We knew that Howard Dean had an anger management problem. Right. It was literally the cover. I have it somewhere. The cover of the opposition research book we had on him at the RNC at the time was, Howard Dean anger management. And then, you get the scream and it fulfills that prophecy. John Kerry did the same thing. He was a flip flopper and he stands in front of a West Virginia veterans town hall and answers a question about the Iraq war and providing the resources for our troops by explaining he actually did vote for the money before he voted against it.
I was for it.
Which is only a coherent statement in the confines of the Senate chamber.
Right. And I remember in 2004, we found a video of him windsurfing. Right. And, the windsurf, you go this way with the wind and then you go that way with the wind. So we had that plastered all over Florida I was for it before I was against it with the windsurfer going back and forth. So.
That's
terrible. Picture is still worth 1,000 words.
That is so terrible.
Google Bush Cheney windsurfing ad. It's still on YouTube. I send that link out at least once a month. It's a terrific ad by Mark McKinnon and his team during the re-elect.
I love it.
Terrific stuff. But you're going to have those moments, right? If Joe Biden, can't string words together or hobbles along, and it reinforces the perception that he's too old for the job. If Donald Trump says something offensive or the bloodbath comment, they're gonna. I mean, that was ridiculous even for the current media standards, the way they took that out of context. But that's what they're going to keep doing, and it's only going to get more ridiculous as time goes on. We get closer to the election, and if the polls aren't looking good, they're going to get more and more desperate on it.
Well, and as time goes on and we get closer to the election, y'all need to go to delvedc.com, be reading up on what they've got to say, read their commentary.
Sign up for their newsletter.
Sign up for the newsletter.
Which
Jeff,
is free, is it not?
It is free, yeah.
And Jeff, you're going to stick around for after hours, right?
Is he? No, Jeff has to, I think he has to go.
Oh, Jeff has to go. Okay.
But no, look, I am not Jeff's keeper. Jeff keeps his own schedule. I am sensitive that he is CEO of a major corporation, so love to have
he
you
has
if you
like a
have
job
time,
and
but-
stuff.
Using major very loosely here.
Exactly.
All right, y'all. Well, stick around. If you are watching on Twitter and Rumble, you are going to have no interruption because they're the free speech platforms, ladies and gentlemen. But if you're on YouTube or Facebook, Instagram, join us over on Twitter or Rumble for the after hours where we can say whatever we want and be silly and salacious. And maybe Jeff will be there and maybe he won't.
That is very
Thank you. Thank you again, Jeff, for being with us.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.